"What have you done?" Dad screamed when he found out I was pregnant, and kicked me out without hearing my side. I just smirked and left. 15 years later, they showed up at our place with my son, and their faces went white when they saw what we had. Sarah stared at the two pink lines on the test strip, her stomach doing these weird flips. 19, almost done with her sophomore year at Iowa State, and boom, this happens. She'd been so careful with Jake, her boyfriend who'd vanished the second she started talking about maybe getting serious. Typical. Her dad was gonna lose his mind. Dave Mitchell worked his ass off at the meatpacking plant, pulling overtime just so she could be the first Mitchell to go to college. Her mom, Linda, kept talking about Sarah becoming a nurse, settling down with some nice local boy, giving them grandkids the right way. Sarah shoved the test in her backpack and headed downstairs. The house smelled like her mom's famous tuna casserole, which normally made her mouth water but now just made her feel sick. Her parents were at the kitchen table, Dad reading the sports section, while Mom sorted through a stack of bills that seemed to grow every month. Time to rip off the Band-Aid. Sarah pulled the test out and set it right between the salt and pepper shakers. No fancy speech, no build-up, just the facts. Her dad looked up from his paper, saw the test, and his face went from confused to bright red in about 2 seconds flat. Mom just froze, staring at the thing like it might bite her. "What the hell have you done?" Dave's voice exploded through their tiny kitchen. He shot up so fast his chair scraped against the linoleum. "We've been breaking our backs for your education." Linda finally looked up, her eyes all shiny with tears. "Sarah, honey, tell me this is some kind of joke." Sarah tried to explain it was an accident. She had plans. She could figure this out. But her dad was pacing now, running his hands through his thinning hair like he always did when he was really pissed. "Nope," he said, voice deadly quiet now. "Get out. Pack your stuff and get out of my house." Sarah felt something cold settle in her chest. Not panic, something harder. "You're not even going to let me explain?" Sarah asked, surprised by how steady her voice sounded. "Nothing to explain," Dave spat. "You threw away everything we worked for. Everything." That's when something inside Sarah just clicked, like a switch flipping. She looked at her parents, really looked at them. Dad standing there like some judge, Mom crying but not saying a word to defend her. A smile spread across Sarah's face, but it wasn't a happy one. Fine. She turned and walked upstairs, moving like she had all the time in the world. 23 minutes later, she counted. She came back down with her old duffel bag and laptop case. Her parents hadn't moved from the kitchen. At the front door, Sarah paused. The Iowa wind was picking up outside, making the screen door rattle. "You know what?" she called back toward the kitchen. "You're going to regret this." Then she walked out into the evening and didn't look back. Not even once. Sarah's roommate Jenny didn't ask questions when she showed up with her stuff. Just moved some things around in their cramped dorm room and made space. Jenny was good people, the kind who'd share her last granola bar and never make you feel bad about it. Senior year hit different when you're pregnant. Sarah studied between doctor appointments, wrote her thesis while her ankles swelled up, and somehow graduated magna cum laude 3 weeks before the baby was due. Take that, Dave Mitchell. Labor sucked. Like, really sucked. Just Jenny in the hospital room, holding her hand and telling her she was doing great when Sarah felt like she was being split in half. No flowers, no balloons, no family rushing in to see the baby. When Tyler finally arrived, screaming his tiny lungs out, Sarah felt this fierce protectiveness wash over her. Not the mushy love everyone talks about, but something sharper. This kid would never, ever feel unwanted. The first 3 years were brutal. Sarah worked at a coffee shop, babysat other people's kids, and did freelance tutoring while taking online classes for her master's degree. When Tyler turned 4, Sarah got accepted to UT Austin for her PhD program. Full ride, plus a teaching assistant gig that actually paid decent money. Austin was far from Iowa, far from her parents, far from everything that felt small and suffocating. Texas was different. Weird, in a good way. Sarah threw herself into her studies, educational psychology, focusing on how kids bounce back from family trauma. Yeah, The irony wasn't lost on her. Tyler loved Austin. He was this curious little kid who asked a million questions about everything. Never asked about grandparents, though. Their little family of two was all he'd ever known. Sarah's advisor, Dr. Rodriguez, became like a mentor. Through him, she met other grad students, other single parents, other people who'd built their lives from scratch. For the first time since leaving Iowa, Sarah felt like she belonged somewhere. The work was hard, but good hard. Sarah was researching something that mattered, something that could help other kids who'd been through what she had, even if her parents never knew it. By the time Tyler started first grade, Sarah had her PhD and a job as an assistant professor. Her research was getting noticed. She'd published papers that other researchers were actually citing. Not bad for a girl from Iowa who got knocked up in college. They rented a little house in a decent neighborhood. Tyler had his own room with dinosaur wallpaper, and Sarah had a home office where she could work without Tyler's toys underfoot. Money was still tight, but they were making it work. Tyler was growing into this thoughtful kid who could hold conversations with adults. He never asked about extended family. Their unit of two seemed to be enough. Sarah had learned to find joy in the small stuff. Tyler's first loose tooth, his first soccer goal, the way he'd curl up next to her when they watched movies. Sometimes late at night, Sarah wondered if her parents ever thought about her, if they knew they had a grandson. But those thoughts came less often now, and when they did, she just pushed them down deep. Sarah met Brian at a faculty party when Tyler was 9. He was visiting from UC Berkeley, working on some joint research project. Tall, funny, with kind eyes and this easy way with kids that made Tyler warm up to him right away. Brian didn't run when he found out Sarah was a single mom. Instead, he asked Tyler about his favorite books and remembered the answers. He showed up to soccer games, helped with homework, never tried to be Tyler's dad, just found his own place in their lives. When Brian proposed 2 years later, Tyler was the first person he asked. The 11-year-old grinned and said yes before Brian could finish the question. They got married in their backyard, just close friends and colleagues. Simple, beautiful, and completely theirs. Sarah wore a dress she'd bought on sale and felt like a queen. Brian's job at Berkeley became permanent, and when Tyler was 13, they moved to California. New state, new opportunities, new life. Sarah found a position at a research institute in San Francisco, her work on childhood trauma finally getting the recognition it deserved. The house in Oakland was bigger than anything Sarah had ever imagined living in. Tyler got his own bathroom and a room big enough for a desk and a reading chair. Sarah had a real office with built-in bookshelves and a window that looked out on their small but perfect garden. Tyler was thriving. He'd joined the debate team, made friends with kids who challenged him intellectually. He was growing into this articulate teenager who could hold his own in conversations with Sarah's colleagues. Sarah's research had evolved. She was focusing on intergenerational trauma now, how family conflicts affected kids and even grandkids. The work was personal in ways she never discussed with anyone, but it drove her to dig deeper. Her book, Breaking Cycles: How Children Overcome Family Rejection, was published when Tyler was 15. It became a bestseller, not just in academic circles but with regular people too. Sarah started getting interview requests, speaking invitations, more money than she'd ever dreamed of. Success was sweet, but it also brought unexpected complications. Money changed things. Sarah went from budgeting every dollar to having a financial advisor. Tyler's college fund was set, and they'd moved to a bigger house in a better neighborhood. 3-car garage, pool, the works. But success also brought visibility. Sarah's book tour meant interviews, media appearances, her face on websites and in magazines. She tried to keep Tyler out of the spotlight, but sometimes she mentioned him, her inspiration, her reason for everything. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in March. Sarah almost threw it away, thinking it was fan mail or some academic request, but the return address made her hands shake. Cedar Falls, Iowa. Inside was a single sheet of paper, handwritten in her mother's familiar script. The words were shaky, uncertain, but clear enough. "Sarah, I don't know if you'll read this, but I had to try. Your father's too proud to admit when he's wrong, but I see him looking at your picture in the paper sometimes. He won't say it, but I know he wonders about you, about his grandson. Sarah read it 3 times before Tyler got home from school. The letter continued. I should have stood up to him that night. I should have come after you. I was scared and stupid, and I let fear make my decisions. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for everything. We know about Tyler now. We've seen the interviews where you mention him. He looks like you did at that age, but he has your father's eyes. Dave pretends not to notice, but he does. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that not a day goes by that I don't think about you both. We made a terrible mistake, and I don't know how to fix it. That evening, Sarah showed the letter to Brian. They sat at their kitchen island. Granite countertops, stainless steel appliances, so different from that cramped kitchen in Iowa, while Tyler did homework upstairs. What do you want to do? Brian asked. Sarah stared out at their perfectly landscaped backyard. I don't know. For 16 years, I've built a life without them. Tyler doesn't even know they exist. Actually, Brian said gently, he's asked questions about why you don't have family photos, why he doesn't have grandparents like his friends. Sarah knew he was right. Tyler was too smart not to have noticed. 3 weeks later, Sarah was in her office when her assistant knocked. Dr. Mitchell, there are some people here to see you. They say they're your parents. Sarah's coffee mug hit the floor, shattering and sending coffee splashing across her papers. My parents? Dave and Linda Mitchell from Iowa. They don't have an appointment, but they said it was urgent. They've traveled a long way. After 16 years of silence, they'd just shown up. At her workplace, without warning. The nerve of it should have made her furious. But instead she felt something like panic. Tell them I'll be right out. Sarah cleaned up the coffee mess, her hands shaking slightly. She checked her reflection in the window. Designer blazer, expensive shoes, success written all over her. Then she walked to the reception area. They looked old. That was her first thought. Dave's hair was completely gray now, his shoulders more stooped. Linda looked smaller, more fragile, clutching her purse like a lifeline. Sarah, Linda's voice broke on her name. Dave cleared his throat, taking in the prestigious institute's lobby, the awards on the walls. We need to talk. About Tyler. What about Tyler? Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. He called us, Dave said, his voice rough. 2 days ago. Found our number somehow. He wants to meet us. Sarah felt the ground shift under her feet. Tyler had contacted them? Her careful, thoughtful son had tracked down the grandparents she'd never told him about? What did you tell him? Linda stepped forward, her eyes pleading. We told him we had to talk to you first. We told him we'd made mistakes. Dave looked uncomfortable, shifting his weight. Kid smart. Real smart. He said he'd been researching your family history for a school project. Found old newspaper clippings mentioning our names. He wasn't angry, Linda added quickly. He was just curious. Said he wanted to understand where he came from. Of course, Tyler had figured it out. He'd always been good at connecting dots. But the thought of him reaching out to her parents without telling her made Sarah feel like she was losing control of something she'd spent 16 years managing. Where is he now? We told him we'd come to California first, Dave said. Told him we'd call him back after we talked to you. The irony hit Sarah like a slap. Her parents, who'd refused to listen to her 16 years ago, were now asking permission to talk to her son. Sarah drove home in a daze, her parents following in their rental car. The familiar streets of Oakland felt surreal with this piece of her past trailing behind her. She pulled into her driveway and saw Tyler's bike against the garage. He was home from school. Brian's car was there too. She'd called him from the office, giving him a quick explanation. Sarah sat in her car for a moment, watching her parents climb out of their rental. They looked around at the neighborhood, the expensive houses, the manicured lawns, the BMWs and Teslas in driveways. Tyler appeared in the doorway, drawn by the sound of car doors. He was tall for 16, with dark hair and intelligent eyes that, Sarah realized with a start, really did look like her father's. She got out of her car and walked toward the house, her parents following hesitantly. Tyler, Sarah said as they reached the front door, I'd like you to meet your grandparents." Tyler's face lit up with recognition. "Grandpa Dave? Grandma Linda?" Linda's hand flew to her mouth, tears spilling over. "Oh my God, Sarah, he's beautiful." Dave stood frozen, staring at Tyler like he was seeing a ghost. "I found newspaper clippings about you in high school," Tyler said, his voice excited but careful. "Your names were mentioned as Mom's parents. I've been trying to figure out why we never see you." Brian appeared behind Tyler, putting a protective hand on his shoulder. "Why don't we all go inside?" As they walked through the house, Sarah watched her parents' faces. They took in the hardwood floors, the expensive furniture, the family photos, showing Sarah's journey from struggling single mom to successful researcher. Tyler's artwork from elementary school hung framed next to Sarah's diplomas and awards. They settled in the living room, an awkward circle of family members who were essentially strangers. "I don't understand why we never knew about each other," Tyler said finally, looking between his mother and his newly discovered grandparents. Sarah looked at her parents, then at her son. "It's complicated, Tyler." "I'm 16, Mom. I can handle complicated." Dave cleared his throat. "When your mother told us she was pregnant, I lost my temper, said things I shouldn't have said, told her to leave." Tyler's eyes widened. "You kicked Mom out? When she was pregnant with me?" Linda was crying openly now. "We thought we were protecting our family. We thought we knew what was right. We were so wrong." Sarah watched Tyler process this information. She could see him connecting the dots. Her struggles as a single mother, the lack of family support, the way she'd built everything from nothing. "And you never tried to contact us?" Tyler asked, his voice smaller now. "In 16 years?" "We were too ashamed," Dave admitted. "Too proud. Your mother built this incredible life without us. She didn't need us." Tyler looked at Sarah, his expression unreadable. "Did you know I was looking for them?" Sarah shook her head. "No, but I should have guessed. You've always been curious about everything." The room fell silent. Outside, the California sun was setting, casting long shadows across the expensive furniture and family photos that told the story of a life built in defiance of the people now sitting in her living room. "So what happens now?" Tyler asked. It was the question everyone was thinking, but no one had dared to ask. Sarah looked at her son, at the husband who'd helped her build this life. What happened now, indeed? Sarah stood up abruptly, walking to the window that looked out on their backyard. The pool sparkled in the late afternoon sun, Tyler's basketball hoop visible at the far end. Everything she'd built, everything she'd achieved, laid out before her like evidence. "You want to know what happens now?" Sarah turned back to face them. "I'll tell you what happens now." Her parents looked up at her, hope and fear warring in their faces. 16 years ago, you decided I wasn't worth listening to. You decided your reputation was more important than your daughter. You threw me out like garbage." "Sarah," Linda started. "No," Sarah cut her off. "You don't get to talk yet. I'm not done." Tyler was watching intently, his teenage brain probably filing away every detail of this family drama. "I raised Tyler alone. I worked 3 jobs while getting my master's degree. I built a career from nothing. I made myself into someone who matters, someone who helps other people. And I did it all without you." Dave looked like he wanted to say something, but Sarah's expression stopped him. "But here's the thing," Sarah continued, her voice softer now. "Tyler deserves to know his family history. All of it. The good and the bad." Sarah sat back down, looking directly at her parents. "If you want to be part of Tyler's life, you earn it. You don't get to waltz in here after 16 years and play grandparents because it's convenient now." "We understand," Linda said quickly. "We'll do whatever." "Here's what's going to happen," Sarah interrupted. "You're going to go back to Iowa. You're going to think about whether you're really ready to be part of this family. Tyler is going to finish high school, and if he wants to visit you over summer break, he can, with Brian." Tyler looked surprised. "You're not coming?" Sarah smiled at her son, the first genuine smile since her parents had walked into her office. "Not yet. Maybe someday. But this is your choice, Tyler. You get to decide if you want them in your life." Dave finally spoke, his voice rough with emotion. We know we don't deserve it, but thank you for giving us a chance. I'm not doing this for you, Sarah said bluntly. I'm doing it for Tyler, and for that scared 19-year-old girl you threw away 16 years ago. She deserved better from you. Linda was crying again, but nodding. She did. You did. Outside, the California sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Sarah looked around her beautiful living room, at her successful husband, her brilliant son, her parents who'd come crawling back after 16 years. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but maybe it was a beginning.